Here's a question. Why is nobody talking about Pantheon? Pantheon is currently one of the most frustrating champions in all of League of Legends to deal with, and has one of the dumbest kits. I'm sorry, Keegan, and the many Pantheon players out there who have been abusing him for freelo, but Pantheon is currently one of the most uninteractive and formulaic champions in League, and let me go ahead and explain what I mean by talking about him today. I do want to note at the start here, I'm not saying that Pantheon is overpowered, or at least not in the way that someone like Fiora currently is. Pantheon has sat at either the #1 or #2 spot for top laner win rates on every server for patch after patch after patch after patch. It might be 6 months now since he's been out of the top 2 at this point, but that doesn't mean he's overpowered. Pantheon does have some very large weaknesses in game. He has some of the lowest base stats in game and a tremendously weak late game that you've no doubt noticed if you've ever tried to play Pantheon not accounting for it. He really can be useless if you don't play him right. But with all that being said, Pantheon still has one of the most frustrating and non-interactive kits that you can come up against in League of Legends. He's among a group of older champions like Nunu and Urgot and Udyr that all have these kits which haven't been changed much since their release over 7 years ago now, and are all slated for upcoming reworks because of it. However, unlike a lot of these older champions, Pantheon is still viable, and he's one of the most horrible champions you ever have to deal with when playing against. Let's imagine a 1 versus 1 top lane between two fighters, like Irelia and Riven. This is a matchup that has a lot going on in it. At level 1, the Riven player can zone the Irelia from all CS unless the Irelia takes E at level 1, in which case the Riven player has a slight edge in the matchup, but Irelia can CS a little bit here or there if she picks her fights right and goes in for CS when Riven is already CSing. At level 2, Irelia can CS even further now that she has her Q, but Riven has a lot of kill potential, presumably taking her Q and W, and if Irelia goes too far, she might die. Levels 3 through 5, Riven still has an advantage in better damage and better trading, but Irelia slowly grows stronger and stronger, where at level 6, it's almost entirely a skill matchup. Whoever gets the better engage, whoever gets the perfect ultimate, it's really down to who's the better player is going to win the matchup, and either player can kill the other, so both are going to be going for aggressive plays and seeing if they can pick up first blood. Now let's look at the same matchup, but with Pantheon instead of Irelia. That's it. I mean, this is all there is. Pantheon has such great harass that he will free farm while Riven gets nothing, actually nothing, and this is every single Pantheon matchup regardless of the champion you're playing. You can try playing any champion into him, all you're really going to be doing is getting various amounts of less CS than him, depending on who you pick, and then you just hope to be more useful than him late game. Every one of Pantheon's abilities goes into serving his 2 purposes in game, crushing laning phase and global presence late game. The global presence with his ultimate is actually the more important of the two, and that's how a Pantheon player will carry a team and win a match, especially since winning laning phase doesn't mean as much anymore in League of Legends nowadays. But the insane lane pressure that he has, and outright boring playstyle you have to use to play against him, just kills any sort of fun you might have when he's in game. His Q deals ridiculous damage and is an incredible poke ability, not just for its DPS and range, but because it's a point and click ability too, not a skill shot. I guarantee you when Riot reworks Pantheon, the first thing they're going to do is change this ability into a skill shot, since currently you don't have to land anything or take any amount of skill to get this free harass off on your opponent. It's insane damage that you get with no downside to it whatsoever. You don't even have to worry about mana. This is an ability that even if you spam it every opportunity you have, generally speaking, it won't make you run out of mana. Mana is given to champions who are supposed to think a little bit about when they should be using their abilities, and they generally are supposed to get punished if they just throw out skills nonstop. Eventually you're supposed to run out of mana and lose that threat of your ability, lose that threat of damage. This ability though only costs 45 mana, which is a pretty small amount compared to the other top lane fighters' Qs, like an Olaf Axe for instance costs 60. Not to mention, Pantheon typically starts a corrupting potion which gives him even more mana regen. The insane damage and infinite spam ability that this ability gives you, it just gives you the best lane control control in the game. How could you possibly lose laning phase with this ability? Either your opponent is going to let you use the Q enough to a point where you can just kill them, which your opponent is just misplaying the laning phase. You're not running out of mana then, and if they stay back long enough, you're just going to regen the mana it costs to use this. 45 mana is absolutely nothing. One of the more overlooked parts of Pantheon's kit, I think, is actually the passive on Heartseeker Strike, your E, where any basic attack or spear shot will critically strike any enemy below 15% health. That's right, your Q can also crit. I forgot about that. This not only makes CSing incredibly easy for Pantheon, but the fact that he also gets a free guaranteed crit when your enemy is low enough, that just lets him finish off any kill so easily. Even if you get a good engage on Pantheon and he messes up a fight somehow, if you're only killing him as fast as he's killing you, this passive will make sure you're always finished off first. But really the biggest problem with Pantheon that I have and many other players have is his passive, Aegis Protection. This is the shield that he gets after landing 4 basic attacks that will block the next incoming basic attack from an enemy champion, large creep, or even tower shot. It's of course worth noting that Pantheon gets a free shield whenever he uses his W, meaning that he can guarantee getting at least 2 of these shields in any fight. Let's just ignore the fact that this ability lets you freely harass someone under tower, the one place that someone might be able to CS freely. You can still harass them even if they're under tower, don't worry. Let's ignore that for a little bit and talk about what crazy trading potential this ability gives him. Against any AD champion, this basically guarantees that Pantheon will always win trades, since you will take away at least 2 auto attacks of damage, and sometimes full-on abilities like a Gangplank Q or a TF Gold card are also blocked by this shield. Just completely negating those gives Pantheon a guaranteed advantage in damage, as if he didn't deal enough damage already, that prevents anyone from engaging on him. Since you can't engage, he'll always have his shield up. If you engage, you activate his shield, he gets this free second shield with his W, and then he can typically auto you enough to get a third shield if the fight lasts long enough. Not being able to engage on a Pantheon goes back to this boring lane where all you do is let the Pantheon free farm and hope to get enough CS that you can eventually be useful late game. If you want to see an example of just how good this shield can be and how good Pantheon's trading is in small fights, take a look at this clip. This was a clip from a game I played not that long ago where I got caught out by a Riven when I was recalling in a spot that I probably shouldn't have been. Now, with me being Pantheon and having the weak resistances and small amount of health that I do, this should equal death, but that's not going to happen. It doesn't happen for 2 reasons, one of which is I have a Lee Sin who is currently doing Rift Herald that is going to come and help me out, but even so, it's still pretty ridiculous how I'm able to survive. Riven starts off by landing a couple of Qs and then flashes forward to stun me, taking me down to no health while she's still at full health. She might have killed me right here if I didn't have my shield up, where her fatal auto is then blocked, and then Lee comes here, he W's to me and knocks her away with his ultimate. Riven then gets her third Q charge towards me, which lands and takes me down to practically nothing, and please note that I have somehow managed to deal enough damage to this Riven to take her down to a third of her health or less. Lee is helping out, of course, but a lot of this damage is just coming from my auto attacks and Qs, which is kind of insane. But anyway, we're left with this situation, these health bars, with me starting to auto Riven and Riven starting to auto me, and you know what's gonna happen, don't ya? Blocked and crit. I know we all love seeing stupid Riven players with the new skin getting killed, but just imagine if you're another champion and you have to deal with this in laning phase. Anytime you want to engage or try and trade against Pantheon, this is the kit that you have to go up against. If you're tired of getting Q-poked all the time in laning phase and getting 0 CS as you get zoned, this is what you go up against if you want to go in for a full-on fight. If you're an AD champion, his shield is just going to block enough damage that you're never going to 1v1 him. He's always going to kill you. But even if you try and counterpick him with a mage champion or something, you're not going to hit a scaling power spike before he's already zoned enough CS to buy a Hex Drinker and still beat you. Because of this incredible 1v1 potential and insane laning phase, Pantheon has to fall off hard late game for him to be balanced and just have terrible scaling, which he honestly does have. You can see pretty clearly the longer the game goes on, the less a chance of Pantheon winning, and again, he's not really all that overpowered because of it. but God, that does not mean it's not hell laning against him. I think the word I'm looking for here is formulaic. It feels so formulaic to play against a Pantheon. It's like it's a chore. You know you have to stack armor, and you know you have to just try and CS and never engage, all that jazz. You can know what you're gonna have to do and brace for the terrible experience you're gonna have when you see someone pick Pantheon. And if you do it all right, you can still beat him, right? I mean, you can still win the game easy, but it's just so boring. You don't get to do anything. You don't get to make any plays or punish any mistakes. As bad as Pantheon can be in the wrong hands, he's so good in the right hands that he's that old word that Riot used to love to bring up years and years ago. He's anti-fun. We all know the rework or some sort of change will come sooner or later. We can imagine what it might be, but I really hope that Riot addresses some of these issues, because the play rate that Pantheon has right now is making top lane miserable with just how unfun he is to deal with. He can single-handedly ruin your experience playing a game of League of Legends. But hey, that's just my opinion. If you'd like to leave your own opinion in the comments down below, feel free to do so. I, of course, am pretty biased, not being a Pantheon main myself, and maybe I misrepresented Pantheon somehow in this video, which you can feel free to correct me on. You guys always do. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video, regardless of what your opinions are. I will hopefully see you again tomorrow, but until then, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.